Hi YouTube, welcome back. You are joining me at lunchtime. And what I thought we'd do is make lunch for the next couple of days and also just have a little chat around nutrition in general, where I think people go wrong when it comes to their nutrition and some of the things that I would say have the most bang for their buck. Whether your goal is fat loss, physique maintenance, or kind of just health in general, if I'm honest. So firstly, when it comes to preparing any food, I will almost always not be making one portion. If I'm going to cook, then I may as well make it worth my while. As a minimum, I'll do a couple of portions at a time, simply because it makes my life easier the next time I'm going to need something to eat. Wednesdays are my work from home days, so I find it easier to do a bit of midweek prepping on a Wednesday, ready for Thursday, Friday, which are busier client-facing days. I'll usually do the same thing on a Sunday as well, getting myself ready for the week. And really, this is going to take 30 minutes absolute tops. We want time efficiency. So I guess that's the first thing. Make multiple portions. Whenever you're cooking, I quite enjoy cooking, but I don't always have the time to be doing it every single day. So when I do have that time put aside to be preparing some food, like make it for 2, 3, 4 portions of that thing. Today, I've only got a couple of portions worth of mince. That's what we're going with. It's going to be simple. We're going to go with some potatoes, the best of all carbs, in my opinion. Actually pretty low in calories too. If you are in a fat loss phase, then white potato, as much as it's been demonized over the years, is actually a really solid option. If you also keep the skins on, you get a really nice fiber hit with these as well. And let's face it, none of us are getting enough fiber on a daily basis. Potatoes. I got some broccoli. We've got to be getting some veggies in. I also refuse to buy tender stem broccoli very often, simply because, do you know the markup on tender stem broccoli? What is that about? This is something like 70p, and then a packet of tender stems like £3.50. I just do not understand. When it's simple midweek meal prep, and it really is just about ticking the boxes and not eating gourmet meals, a head of broccoli will be absolutely fine. And then we do have some beef mince, which I have defrosted. So I'm going to start by seasoning some of my beef mince. Now, don't get me wrong, there'll be the odd occasion where I kind of get a bit creative and I'm like, what fancy meal can I conjure up today for my lunches this week? But most of the time, probably 90% of the time, I'm not really thinking about a full recipe or anything complicated whatsoever. I am quite literally thinking about ticking 3 boxes: protein, carbs, color, and that is literally as simple as it will be for me. I can then add a little bit of variety with some sauces. I might throw some cheese on there, maybe some avocado, maybe some salsa, whatever I'm feeling at the time. But the staple remains simple. And honestly, like, this is really not a recipe. I'm making this up as I go along. A little bit of this, a little bit of that, a few of those, and then obviously salt and pepper. Again, I'm not measuring anything. I'm just basically adding a bit of flavor to my protein of choice. For me, I will mostly stick to like leaner sources of protein. So I will buy 5% fat beef mince most of the time. Chicken is my exception though. I feel like chicken breasts are just, well, they're okay if you cook them right, but I feel like they're just not that tasty in all reality. Chicken thighs are something I'll make an exception for because they taste so much better. And then I will literally just mix that up, get it all nice and coated, and stick it to one side. Let it do its thing for a bit whilst I prep my carbs. This is the biggest chopping board I've ever seen in my life. But I had those tiny little plastic ones before, and honestly, they just did my head in. Everything was like falling off of the chopping board every time I used it. I was like, right, I'm gonna get my hands on the biggest chopping board I can possibly find. And I sure got that. With my potatoes, I am literally just gonna chop these up into little squares today. Why not? Sometimes I'll do a chip, maybe a wedge, but today we're gonna do some little squares, little cubes of potato. And I find that putting these in the air fryer is so good. They just don't get the same crisp in the oven. And also I'm impatient and it takes literally half the time in the air fryer. I'll chop these up, stick them in to my little air fryer drawer. And I really feel like potatoes are underused and maybe seen as less healthy than maybe a sweet potato, for example. But actually, like, they're just better in different ways. You've got more vitamins and minerals in a sweet potato, but in terms of calories and like the main macronutrients, they're really not that different. So go with whatever you prefer. Of course, you could use sweet potatoes here, but you could also just taking that protein, carbs, and color principle. Like, you could have rice, you could have noodles, pasta, couscous, any carb is fine. Great, in fact. I'm not measuring this, I'm not weighing this, I'm not tracking this, but I'd imagine maybe 3 large potatoes for 2 portions. Maybe that's generous. I don't know really, but I always think you're better off having more or like too much than too little. There is nothing more devastating than realize you've got a tiny little portion of potatoes. That'll do, I reckon. A nice bit of olive oil, obviously some salt. I love salt so much. Pepper. And then I actually do have this really good potato seasoning. I got this from Spain, I think. Anyway, it's great. I don't really know what's in it, but it tastes really good. Bit of whatever seasoning you like, and then give it a little jiggle, and they're ready for the air fryer. And lastly, I'm going to show you my hack. I don't know if you can call it a hack really, but with a head of broccoli, I feel like they're really messy because you get these tiny little broccoli fibers like everywhere, and I'm quite a clean person. I'm a clean freak. Not only that, I just like to keep it as easy as I can possibly make it, but I will quite literally just shove this broccoli head into a pan of water as is. I don't really see why you need to chop it up any more than that. It cooks just the same, and then it slices really easily when it's cooked. I don't know, maybe I'm just lazy, but like, how much easier is that? Bit of boiling water, lid on, job's a good one. As you can probably hear, that is currently cooking away. And I thought this might be the time to talk about what I think is one of the biggest mistakes you can make when it comes to food in general, your approach to nutrition, if you have a physique goal, right? And I think, honestly, the more people I work with, the more people I speak to, I think there is sometimes an expectation that you need to be reinventing the wheel every time it comes to you deciding what you're going to eat next week. And I think it comes partly, at least, from the amount of information we have coming in on TikTok, Instagram, all of these recipes and meal ideas that look absolutely delicious. And whilst that is such an amazing resource to have, it's also quite unrealistic in my view when you think about what your life actually looks like. If you're anything like the women I work with, you're busy, you've got a lot going on. Do you really want to be spending that much time thinking about what types of meals you're going to create? And trying to do something different every single day is probably setting you up for failure a little bit, because in reality, no one has the time or capacity to do that. Sometimes it's just worth asking, like, do you actually need another recipe idea? Or can you just use some simple principles that work for you? For me, that protein, carbs, color principle always keeps me anchored to the right types of food that really help me to feel energized, to feel satisfied, crucially, but also to help me with my goal of feeling good, feeling strong, feeling healthy. And you might be thinking, well, I don't want to eat the same thing every day. And like, that is okay, but you are probably going to need to give yourself some type of repetition and consistency if you're going to want to stick to whatever your nutrition approach is in the long term. For example, with what I'm cooking today, if I had more beef mince, I'd cook up an entire pack. We could have some in a taco. We could put some on a jacket potato. We could do like a loaded fry situation. There are lots of different ways that you can use those basic ingredients in a way that doesn't leave you feeling just completely overwhelmed when it comes to planning out your meals ahead of time. In terms of advice, for people who are just focused on a health goal, right? Wanting to fuel yourself well, wanting to maybe maintain the physique that you've currently got. As a bare minimum, something that I will always suggest and something I am literally doing right now is twice a week, I will carve out half an hour to make at least 2 portions of protein, carbs, and color. That is literally what I'm doing here. And it just means on my busier days, I'm not having to run out to prep and spend 15 quid on something that is bang average. It's definitely a money-saving thing too. No one wants to be spending 20, 30 pounds on convenience foods, because I can personally think of better things to spend my money on, but also it's just not going to leave you feeling that great. Let's portion up my broccoli head. So it's just super easy to just chop the little heads off once they're cooked. So much easier than when it's raw and rock solid. Take the stem out and you're good. Could not be easier. And then I've got half for now and half for later. I may have overdone it on the potatoes, but that's okay. We're hungry. So we'll do some for now and the rest for tomorrow. Yeah, too hot. Okay. And our seasoned beef mince. It's roughly half and half. It doesn't really matter. If you were in a calorie deficit, in a fat loss phase, then I would probably recommend you track this. And I would personally track cooked weight. As you can imagine, the weight of a raw potato versus a cooked potato, very different. A cooked potato, the weight is going to be much less. A lot of the water has left the potato, so it's going to be a lot lighter. Knowing that you've captured everything cooked, I would put my plate on the scales, zero the scales, add my ingredients one at a time and track those. So let's say, for the sake of argument, it's 150 grams of cooked potato, 120 grams of cooked beef mince, 5%, and roughly 100 grams of cooked broccoli. But honestly, you probably don't need to worry about the green stuff being tracked. I would also track your oil. I kind of free-handed. Let's guesstimate a tablespoon to be over generous. And that is literally it. It really does not need to be more complicated than that. For me, I love sriracha, so I'm going to give that a good drizzle. I'm also going to do more salt just because I can't get enough, especially on the greens. I feel like salty vegetables are just... Same for tomorrow. And there we go. I'm not going to lie, I know it's basic, but that looks like a really nice plate of food, at least to me. So to sum up, cook multiple portions. If you're stuck for meal ideas, think how you can simplify your approach. Protein, carbs, and color. It's easy to track, it's repeatable, and genuinely really tasty. And I hope that's been helpful. I'm salivating now, so I'm going to let you go. But thank you for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next week. Love you, bye.